a number of incidents with LAPD cops committing DUIs and how they were treated. And I was going to do a whole video on a bunch of cops. But the more I looked at this guy that we're talking about today, Gabriel Gaxiota, the more I realized this guy has so much information. I got to do just an episode just on this guy. I feel like I could probably fill up 45 minutes just talking about this degenerate. So let's start with this guy. Let's take a look at him right here. Let's pull up my guy. So this guy right here, Gabriel Gaxiola, this guy's had an issue with getting arrested for driving under the influence, getting in accidents, and doing a bunch of other stuff, right? So back in 2016, this guy was he was off duty, but he was on call he was working on a SWAT team, LAPD SWAT team. And for some reason, while he was on call, he's like, let's go hang out down in Laguna Beach and get shit-faced drunk. This guy right here. And in the process, I believe he got so drunk, he had like a 0.20 blood alcohol level. And he got pulled over by the cops. And he had all his SWAT gear with him. So he was in his SWAT car with his SWAT gear, gun on his waist, shit-faced drunk, driving around. The cops pull him over and he got arrested, right? This guy right here. And after he got arrested, they towed his car back to the police station, but they had to keep it under guard because it had all his SWAT equipment in it. And they had to wait for, I guess, the LAPD to come down, pick up his equipment. And, you know, I got to tell you something. Blowing a 0.20 blood level, it's pretty bad, right? It's so bad that 2 years later, they gave him a promotion to a supervisor. So this guy gets arrested, driving around shit-faced drunk. And LAPD is like, no, we got to make this guy a supervisor. Let's make him a supervisor over other cops, right? The problem is then he was shit-faced drunk driving again, got into an accident involving two cars. And it seemed like, he refused to take a blood test. Seems both times he refused to take a blood test. Gave him a hard time. I don't even think guy had insurance on him. And as of last week, I know for a fact he was 2 weeks ago, he was working over in the Pacific Palisades as a LAPD cop. So this guy has just been doing his whole Grand Theft Auto thing for years now, getting promotions, getting more money, and yet the LAPD did not get rid of the guy. So let's start with some of the documents I came up with. Let's start with his first initial arrest back in 2016. Let me see if I could find those documents. 1 second here. Oh, great. So, of course, it's not allowing me to see some of these documents. That's going to really piss me off. It's not allowing me to share them. Oh, here we go. Let's pull this up. So this is his paperwork from back in 2016. Orange County District Attorney charges that in Orange County, California, the law was violated as follows. On or about July 10, 2016, in violation of Section 23152A of the Vehicle Code, driving under the influence, Mr. Shitface right here, Gabriel Gaxiola did unlawfully drive a vehicle. It says here that his blood alcohol level was a 0.8. So that's what it came. Oh no, it was 0.8 or more. So what happened is he refused to take a breathalyzer test on scene. So they drew blood. They got a warrant. They drew blood. They sent it to LAPD, and it came back. I don't know if it was. Yeah, it came back here. It says came back 0.20. So he was shit-faced. This guy right here, Gaxiola, was shit-faced drunk, driving around in his LAPD vehicle that he uses for SWAT. Let's see what else it says here. So he ended up pleading guilty, and it seems he got like 6 months suspended sentence, $1,000 fine, so on and so forth. Like I said, I'm kind of going through some of this stuff for the first time with you. All right, so that's the initial arrest document. let me pull up some of the other documents associated with this degenerate, right? And like I said, this guy was riding around in his SWAT vehicle. What the hell is he doing in his SWAT vehicle, riding around shit-faced drunk? That's just kind of outrageous, don't you think? Let's see here. All right, let's pull up the investigative report. 1 second. So here we have the investigative report. Start at the beginning. Uh, so this was from the internal affairs, sending it to the Laguna Beach Police Department, right? And scroll down. Said on July 10, 2016 at 02:07 hours. So it was 2 o'clock in the morning. He was riding around on call, shit faced, 2 o'clock in the morning. This cop was on uniform patrol, and he was equipped with sirens and overhead lights, so on and so forth. When he began monitoring a car that was driving in front of him, a black Ford SUV with no license plates. So, that's the LAPD black Ford SUV, right? And as the Ford passed the intersection of Coast Highway and West Street, the vehicle suddenly changed from the number 2 lane to the number 1 lane in front of another vehicle without signaling, violation of CVC 22107, unsafe lane change. The police vehicle, the SWAT vehicle, Gaxiola and his Ford, then quickly accelerated, changed back into the number 2 lane in front of another vehicle. I continued following the Ford, and as it passed the intersection of 7th Avenue and Coast Highway, I placed the vehicle. He paced the vehicle at 70 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. So Mr. Shit-Faced Drunk is riding here in his police vehicle with full of fucking weapons in the back, smoking at 70 miles per hour in a 40-mile-per-hour zone. So he was speeding on top of it. The cop activated his overhead lights and siren, approached the vehicle. As the vehicle neared Coast Highway and Via Mentone intersections, the driver signaled, slowed to approximately 30 mile per hour. The vehicle briefly pulled to the shoulder. So he pulled over. But then he said, nah, fuck that. And he re-entered the number 2 lane and continued driving southbound before ultimately yielding at the intersection of Coast Highway and Crown Parkway. Right? So already here, you see this guy driving shit-faced drunk, got a whole cache of weapons in his car, got a gun on his waist, I presume, going 70 miles per hour. Cop goes to pull him over. He pulls over to the shoulder, and he's like, "No, I'm not pulling over. Fuck this guy. Who does he think he is? I'm SWAT team. He's just a cop." And he starts driving off again. And then he decides, you know what, maybe I shouldn't do that. Let me pull the fuck over. So that's what happened at that incident. He instructed Gaxiola to exit the vehicle. Let me pull this up again. He instructed him to exit the vehicle, and he noticed that the guy's eyes were bloodshot and watery. His speech was slow and slurred, and I smelled an odor of alcohol beverage emanating from the vehicle. All right. A couple other cops came to the scene to assist. The cop instructed the SWAT team cop, Gaxiola, the degenerate, to exit his vehicle, and he met with him at the entrance of the Monarch Bay gated community. They administered a horizontal gaze nystagmus, whatever that is, test on Gaxiola, during which I observed a lack of smooth pursuit. I'm assuming that's something with he has to follow something with his eyes in front of his face. During a test, it appeared that Gaxiola was not following the stimulus. I asked Gaxiola the preliminary investigative questions from a DUI arrest and recorded his answers on the face page of the form. Next, I explained and demonstrated a series of standardized field sobriety tests and so on and so forth. He offered Gaxiola the opportunity to submit the preliminary alcohol screening test, but he declined to take a test. So he didn't want to take any alcohol screening test. And based upon the objective symptoms of alcohol intoxication observed, his performance in the SFSTs and his impaired driving, I placed Gaxiola under arrest for CVC 23152A DUI and handcuffed him without incident. So at least he was able to handcuff him without incident. I informed Gaxiola of his option to submit to the chemical test of his breath or blood, and he elected to submit the blood sample. I placed Gaxiola in the back of the police car, transported him to Laguna Beach jail, where he was booked and later released on his own recognizance. He was released to, I guess, a LAPD lieutenant came down there to pick him up. Lieutenant McMillan came to the police station or came to the jail and picked him up. And so, yeah, Officer Drake later informed me that he located an open Michelob Ultra beer bottle in the front passenger compartment of his Ford. So isn't that great, guys? Isn't that great? So not only is he drunk driving, but he was drunk driving in a police vehicle, but he was literally just drinking in the fucking cop car. This guy is riding around off duty down Laguna Beach on call, got his weapons in the vehicle, gun on his hip. He's got his Michelob Ultra in the seat. He's just knocking them down, and he got pulled over for being shit-faced, right? And a SWAT team member. You would think after something like that, getting caught in a police vehicle, being on call when this happens, you would think he would lose his job. But he did not lose his job. He didn't. He didn't get a demotion. And like I said, 2 years later, this degenerate got a promotion. A promotion. And then just a couple years ago in 2022, this degenerate went and got into another accident. Another one. Let me pull it up here. Let me see if I can find this real quick. That's from 2016. Let's see here. Here we go. All right. Bear with me here. All right. So this is some internal affairs report. Oh no, this is not the same one, is it? Let me see here. Yes, it is. What year is this from? Yes, 2016. Wrong one. How about this one? Here we go. All right. So then internal affairs was in 2022. He had been, like I said, he had gotten into an accident. He was driving his Tesla. He was driving way too fast, smacked into the back of one car, which smacked into the back of the other car. The cops came. They saw him walking around the scene, shit-faced, drunk, couldn't stand well. They asked him for his insurance, and like every good drunk degenerate, he decided to hand his debit card to the cops as his proof of insurance. My guess, in looking at some of these documents here, it looks like he did not have insurance to begin with. So isn't it wonderful that you have this cop who has a history, drunk driving once again, gets into an accident, and this guy doesn't even have insurance on his Tesla. It's like, the guy makes a lot of money. There's really no reason for him to be behind on his insurance. So let's start here. It says on May 13th at approximately 2000 hours, which would be what, 8 o'clock at night, Gaxiola, while off duty, consumed alcoholic beverages at a restaurant in downtown Los Angeles. Shortly after, while driving home, he became involved in a traffic collision on State Route 110. On May 13th, 2022, at approximately 20:30 hours, Gaxiola drove his privately owned vehicle northbound on State Route 110 in the area of the North Avenue 52 overpass. Gaxiola's vehicle collided with two vehicles that were stopped in the number 3 lane of traffic. Gaxiola contacted emergency services. CHP officer Eric Hernandez, identified, blah, 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 responded to the collision and determined that based on his training and experience, that Gaxiola had been driving under the influence of alcohol and was unable to safely operate a motor vehicle. And Gaxiola, Mr. Degenerate SWAT guy, was placed under arrest. Now, keep in mind, this guy, he was no longer in SWAT because he had gotten a promotion. He got promoted to sergeant. At this time, he was either working in Hollenbeck or no, not Rampart. What was the other one? Was he in Newton? One of them. But he was, I think, Newton actually, as a sergeant. All right, so he was placed under arrest. Let's look at some more investigative details here. All right, and during the investigation, they spoke with Gaxiola and observed Gaxiola displayed signs and symptoms of intoxication, including red and watery eyes and odor of alcoholic beverage emanating from his breath and his person, because the guy was just smelling like fucking alcohol at that point, right? Unsteady gait while walking around the traffic collision scene, and delayed slurred speech. Hernandez did not observe any signs or symptoms of intoxication on any of the other involved parties in the collision. Basically, the people that he hit, they weren't drunk. Gaxiola's passenger, he had a passenger in the car, advised Hernandez that Gaxiola was an employee of the LAPD, because you always gotta let them know that, hey, I'm a cop, man. I'm one of you. Cut me some slack here. Cut me a break. The occupant in the car complained of pain to her knee from the traffic collision, and that's a big deal, because if it's an injury that causes, I'm sorry, if it's an accident, a DUI accident that causes an injury, that then bumps it up from misdemeanor to felony. Now, I can tell you right now, on both of his charges, he was charged with misdemeanors. Neither one of them was he charged with a felony, even though it met the standard to be charged as a felony. They said, nah, it's an LAPD cop. We're going to cut him some slack and just charge him with a misdemeanor. That way he can keep his job, right? And the only way, then it becomes an automatic felony if it happens 3 times. So if you do it once, misdemeanor, twice, misdemeanor, third time, now it's a felony, but it did cause an injury. So therefore, this should have been charged as a felony, which is just like, oh my God. You know, scroll down here some more. Okay, he was assigned to the Newton Division Gang Enforcement Detail. So Newton GED. Scroll down. He said approximately 5 to 10 minutes after leaving the restaurant that he was in downtown when he got shit-faced drunk. He claimed he only had a couple drinks, but we all know better. Became involved in a traffic collision. He was driving at approximately 55 to 60 miles per hour. I wonder what the speed limit was there. 2 disabled vehicles with the lights off suddenly appeared around the curve, in which Gaxiola's vehicle created a situation where he was unable to stop in time and collided with the rear of one of the vehicles. Gaxiola observed that 2 disabled vehicles appeared unoccupied, and the individuals were standing on the shoulder alongside the vehicles. Gaxiola believes that the 2 vehicles may have been involved in the collision prior to him colliding with them. Gaxiola observed significant damage to the front of the vehicle. Oh, I don't really care what he observed, because right then he was shit-faced drunk. What the fuck would he know, right? It shows here, the body-worn video shows that when the cop came to the scene, the cop asked, will you take a breath test? Gaxiola replied, no. So he refused to go along with the breath test. He said, will you take a blood test? And Gaxiola said no. So here's an LAPD cop unwilling to perform the necessary tests, which led to a warrant to get the blood test. So he's not even helping out. So why did you charge this guy with a misdemeanor? It should have been a felony, but you chose to do a misdemeanor. And especially when this guy is acting like a fucking asshole and not even helping out with the investigation. He's a cop. He's a cop. And at the end of the day, he's interfering with the investigation. Investigators notes, blah 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 blah. All right, let's look at the copy. Let me pull up some other documents here. We're going through these things together. There's a plethora of documents. Let's see what this one says. What year is this? This is not. We already looked at that one. You know what? So, like I said, this guy, he can go through these 2 arrests, right? And he shouldn't keep his job. He got a 22-day suspension the first time. The second time, after 2022 arrest, he decided that he's going to go to the Board of Rights. But before he goes to the Board of Rights, they work out this sort of settlement agreement where he spends a year doing his rehab work or whatever before he goes to the Board of Rights. Like, why is he getting another year? Why does he get a year to like show how good he is before he has to go and do his sort of trial? Board of Rights is thing where if the LAPD thinks that you may or may not be fit for the police department, you can choose the Board of Rights rather than have the police chief decide what your penalty is and let the Board of Rights decide what your penalty is instead, right? And Board of Rights is just a bunch of full of shit. It's supposedly 3 civilians, but it's not. It's usually 1 LAPD cop and 2 civilians who are handpicked by the LAPD commission. You're never going to get somebody on there that's going to hold a cop accountable. They're just a bunch of bootlickers. They're usually maybe ex-LAPD cops or ex-prosecutors, things like that, people who work close together with the LAPD. And they delayed the Board of Rights hearing for, it looks like, until last month, if I'm looking at some of these documents correctly. So from 2002 to basically the end of 2004, beginning of 2025, he avoided the Board of Rights, and they did it for a reason. They delayed it because LAPD, once you work 20 years and you turn 50 years of age, you then qualify for retirement. If you get fired or forced to resign at the age of 49, you don't get that pension. So therefore, what they did is they delayed it and delayed it and delayed it. And so he have to go in front of the Board of Rights last month when he's 51 years old and qualifies. I know, like I said, I know for a fact he was a cop as of last month in January. He was working over in the Pacific Palisades fire. I know that for a fact. And he was able to get away with that because they put it off, and they needed to do that because otherwise, if they got rid of him 2 years ago, he wouldn't get his pension. If they got rid of him a year ago, he wouldn't have got his pension. So the LAPD looked out for this degenerate. Like I said, you and I, we get in these DUI accidents causing injury and shit. We're going to jail. Guys, we're going to jail. We're gonna do some prison time. Second one, oh no, we're gonna do some prison time. This guy stays on as a supervisor. This guy stayed on the first one as a SWAT after he got arrested with all his SWAT gear in his SWAT car, driving drunk. And then it's not only that. This last one, the first one, you see, he didn't just get pulled over. He went on a little mini chase because he went to go pulled over to his shoulder. And he says, nah, fuck that. I'm out of here. And then thought about it. Then probably sobered up for that quick second and said, nah, maybe I should pull over. So he's doing all this stuff. And yet he keeps his job. Is that right? Is that right at all? So even though it looks like the LAPD wasn't going to fire him, actually was not going to fire him for the second time, he went in front of a post hearing. Post hearing is California has their own certifications for police officers. And if you go in front of the post board, they can decertify you. And if you're decertified as a police officer, you can't work as a police officer in California. And so last week, what's the date today? A week ago, this guy's case went in front of the post board. And let me pull it up. Let's play a little bit of that video.
At this time, I will call upon law enforcement consultant Robert Bringolf, Professional Conduct, Los Angeles County Bureau, and Carrie Woolley, Attorney, Legal Affairs Bureau, to provide a report on case post 2302971, Gabriel Gaxiola, who at the time of the events at issue in this case was employed by the Los Angeles Police Department. Please.
All right. Good morning, everybody. My name is Robert Bringolf. I'm one of the law enforcement consultants assigned to the Professional Conduct Bureau for Los Angeles County. With me today is Carrie Woolley, an attorney with our Legal Affairs Bureau. I'm here to present case 232971 involving LAPD Sergeant Gabriel Gaxiola. It's the division's determination that clear and convincing evidence exists to demonstrate that Sergeant Gaxiola committed an act of serious misconduct as set forth in Penal Code Section 13510.8, being arrested while off duty for driving under the influence of alcohol on May 13th, 2022. Specifically, the division has determined that Sergeant Gaxiola committed the following acts of serious misconduct. That would be acts that violate the law and are sufficiently egregious or repeated as to be inconsistent with the peace officer's obligation to uphold the law or respect the rights of a member of the public, as determined by the commission. And that's Penal Code Section 13510.8, B as in boy, sub 6. So this morning, I'm going to present a brief outline of the division's findings of my investigation in this matter. Sergeant Gaxiola was hired by LAPD on October 26, 1998. He was promoted to sergeant July 7th, 2019. On May 13th, 2022, Sergeant Gaxiola was arrested for his second DUI while employed as a peace officer for the Los Angeles Police Department.
Second.
He was off duty and driving his personal vehicle on State Route 110 in the area of North Avenue 52 overpass. His vehicle collided with a stopped vehicle, which in turn collided with another vehicle that had been stopped in the number 3 lane of traffic. Just so everybody's on the same page, the lanes are numbered from the inside of the roadway to the outside, 1, 2, 3. Gaxiola immediately contacted emergency services, which resulted in the California Highway Patrol responding to the scene. The CHP officer observed Sergeant Gaxiola had red, watery eyes, an odor of alcoholic beverages emitting from his breath and person. He had an unsteady gait, and that was observed while he was walking around the accident scene. He had slurred and delayed speech, and when one of the officers asked for his insurance card, he handed him his debit card instead.
His debit card.
A CHP officer conducted a standard field sobriety test.
Guys, that's when you know you're shit-faced drunk, is when you're handing somebody, when they ask for your insurance and you're handing them your debit card. That is a clear case of being shit-faced, but I digress.
And determined Mr. Gaxiola had been driving while under the influence of alcohol. He was arrested for driving under the influence in violation of 23152 sub A VC. It's the vehicle code. Sergeant Gaxiola refused to submit.
So that's the problem. That 23152 of the vehicle code, that's DUI. That's a DUI, right? And that's a misdemeanor. But again, this is after he got in an accident and caused injury to the person in his own car. That should be 21153, I believe, which is one number up, which is a felony, or it's a wobbler, which means that you can charge it as a felony or a misdemeanor. Should be charged as a felony. Come on now, this is a second offense. Second offense, it happened within 10 years. That's part of the criteria. It's happened within 10 years of the last DUI. But because he's an LAPD cop, they get special treatment.
To a chemical test, at which time a search warrant was sought for a sample of his blood.
Rewind that.
0.1 would have had an approximate BAC of 0.23.
Ooh, let me go back. I'm sorry.
And that was observed while he was walking around the accident scene. He had slurred and delayed speech. And when one of the officers asked for his insurance card, he handed him his debit card instead.
Here's my debit card.
A CHP officer conducted a standard field sobriety test and determined Mr. Gaxiola had been driving while under the influence of alcohol. He was arrested for driving under the influence in violation of 23152 sub A VC. It's the vehicle code. Sergeant Gaxiola refused to submit to a chemical test, at which time a search warrant was sought for a sample of his blood.
Refused.
The warrant was granted and executed on May 14th, 2022 at 0122 hours. That's approximately 5 hours after the accident occurred. And he was also arrested for section 23152B of the vehicle code. On May 17th of that same year, 2022, the lab report came back and showed that the analysis of the blood sample from Mr. Gaxiola resulted in an average of 0.155% blood alcohol concentration, or BAC, as you might hear me say. The legal limit is 0.08
So he had double the legal limit. This guy was shit-faced drunk.
BAC. An LAPD subject matter expert later calculated that an average male of Gaxiola's build would have had an approximate BAC of 0.23 5 hours prior to the collection of that 155 sample.
So okay, so remember, if it's over 0.08, that means you are guilty of operating under influence. 0.08. He had 0.23. That's 3 times the legal limit. This guy was and he's saying I had 2 glasses of wine. I'm sorry. This guy is 200 pounds. He had 2 glasses of wine and he's blowing a 0.23. Please. This guy was shit-faced drunk.
As an aggravating factor, Sergeant Gaxiola was found to be carrying his handgun in his waistband at the time of his arrest.
Great. So he's got his gun. He's riding around shit-faced drunk and he's got a fucking gun on his waist. Real fucking smart.
While he was driving intoxicated. On February 9th, 2024, Sergeant Gaxiola pled no contest to and was convicted of 1 misdemeanor count of driving under the influence of alcohol.
Misdemeanor.
With a BAC of over 0.08%. That's a violation of California Vehicle Code Section 23152B. During that same proceeding, Sergeant Gaxiola admitted to a prior conviction for driving under the influence in Los Angeles County Superior Court. That's related to a 2016 case or arrest, case 16HM08811, and that's from January of 2017. On February 9th, 2024, Mr. Gaxiola was placed on summary probation for a period of 60 months. The conditions of that probation are that he not operate a motor vehicle with any measurable amount of alcohol in his blood. He's not to drive a motor vehicle without a valid driver's license in his possession.
So he's got 5 years probation. So they put him on. Isn't it crazy that you have this cop? This cop is on probation and he's a cop. A sergeant, a supervisor at that. I got to tell you, that's just insane to me. On probation.
Or without liability insurance in the minimum amounts required by law. He's to comply if ordered by Department of Motor Vehicles to install an ignition interlock device as a condition of probation. He's ordered to make restitution to the victim per Penal Code Section 1202.
He has to make restitution because he didn't have insurance on his car.
4 small f in an amount determined at the hearing. He's to pay a probation revocation restitution fine pursuant to Penal Code Section 1202.44, which might be enforced in the manner provided for the enforcement of money judgment in the amount of $150. He's to obey all laws and orders of the court. He was also ordered to serve 4 days in city jail.
He had to go to jail for 4 days. He had to go to jail for 4 days, but yet he can remain a cop. What am I missing here? What am I missing here? The police chief is running around talking about how we got to do something about how these cops are being unfairly treated. The discipline process is too unfair to him. We have to make it more lenient. How much more lenient can you get? How much more lenient can you get? This guy has been to jail for multiple arrests, and he stays on as a sergeant. He stayed on the first time as a SWAT member. What the fuck are we doing here?
Condition of his probation and to pay a fine of $500 plus penalty assessments and enroll within 21 days from the date of his court hearing or his release from custody and successfully complete an approved licensed 18-month driving under the influence program, as well as enroll in and complete a MADD victim impact program and attend 52 Alcoholics or Narcotics Anonymous meetings at a rate of 2 per week. In addition to those court proceedings, on January 26, 2024, Gaxiola signed a rehabilitation agreement with the LAPD in relation to the second DUI case. In that agreement, he admitted he engaged in misconduct that warranted discipline, and he agreed he understood the Board of Rights was agreeing to hold his discipline in abeyance until he completed the terms of his rehabilitation agreement.
So again, he gets arrested a second time, and rather than just like work on firing this guy, they say, you know what, we're going to hold off for a year. Or it might have been longer than that. I think it may have been like 2 years. We're going to hold off on all of that. We want to see how you do. Here's this agreement. You got to go to all these classes and stuff. Let's see how you do with that, and then we'll make our decision. What the fuck are we doing here? Who gets these opportunities and these chances? This guy has no fucking business being a cop, and they're cutting him all types of slack. Again, he was like 48 at the time when he did that agreement. You have to be 50 to retire. So essentially, they're just delaying, trying to get him across that line at 50 years old. And so then he can retire and get his full pension without any sort of penalty.
The division has also examined and considered his first DUI arrest as a peace officer, and that case was considered pursuant to California Code of Regulations, Title 11, Section 1213. Brief summary of that: on July 10th, 2016, around 02 hours, Sergeant Gaxiola, then Officer Gaxiola, was off duty in the city of Laguna Beach, California. He was driving his assigned police vehicle. He'd been assigned to the SWAT team at the time of this event. And he had taken his city vehicle to a wedding in Huntington Beach, California. At the wedding, he'd consumed mixed drinks, but didn't know how many.
Because he was too
After
drunk
leaving
to
the
know.
wedding in his city vehicle, he was stopped for a traffic violation by an on-duty Laguna Beach police officer. During that traffic stop, he displayed objective signs of alcohol intoxication and was given a horizontal gaze nystagmus test and was arrested for violation of Section 23-152A VC, which is driving under the influence, and it's a misdemeanor. After his arrest, he refused to submit to a preliminary alcohol screening test, but did submit to a blood test. He was found to have a blood alcohol content, or BAC, of 0.202.
0.202. Again, 0.08 is the legal limit. He was 0.20, which is 2.5 times the legal limit. Shit-faced drunk, driving around, SWAT vehicle, city LAPD vehicle, right? With all his equipment, all his guns and stuff in the vehicle.
To further aggravate that situation, his city-owned vehicle had to be towed to Laguna Beach Police Department and secured in their Sally Port, as the vehicle contained department-issued equipment and weapons. And while that victim was being secured, officers located an open bottle of beer in the front passenger compartment.
Michelob Ultra.
He ultimately received a 22-day suspension without pay for that 2016 DUI arrest. And in 2017, he received a misdemeanor conviction for violation of Section 23-152B.
2017, he was convicted. 2019, he got a promotion. Explain that to me. You would think somebody like that, after that, there's no more promotions coming for you. But no, 2 years later, this guy gets a fucking promotion.
The charge of 23-152A was dismissed, and he received 3 years of informal probation, $140.
He got a promotion while he was on probation. He had 3 years probation, and during that time, he got a promotion. That's just crazy to me, guys.
Fine, a mandated 6-month first offenders program, and some victim impact counseling. So the facts as I've just recited support the division's finding that Mr. Gaxiola was involved in serious misconduct, specifically acts that violate the law and are sufficiently egregious or repeated as to be inconsistent with a peace officer's obligation to uphold the law.
There you go.
For purpose of our findings at the division, clear and convincing evidence means evidence of a charge is clear and convincing so long as there is a high probability that the charge is true. The evidence need not establish a fact beyond a reasonable doubt. The division recommends that Sergeant Gaxiola's post certifications be revoked.
Right.
And the division's recommendation is based on the following. He'd been arrested for violating the law on 2 occasions during his employment as a peace officer. More specifically, both arrests have occurred while Sergeant Gaxiola has held the rank of sergeant. While a repeated violation of the law alone may not always rise to the level of serious misconduct, it's the nature of these arrests and the aggravating factors that led the division to find clear and convincing evidence exists to prove he'd been involved in serious misconduct, specifically that described in 13.510.8 sub B sub 6 and California Regulation 1205 sub A sub 6. The public has a right to expect high moral and ethical standards from the police, and Sergeant Gaxiola's wanton disregard for public safety on more than one occasion merits decertification. Further, the public has the right to be policed by individuals who are held to a higher standard. Sergeant Gaxiola's actions and arrests do not meet this standard. Sergeant Gaxiola's blood alcohol concentration at each arrest was remarkably high. Expert opinion indicated that at the time of Gaxiola's recent accident, his blood alcohol content was likely around 0.23%, which is approximately 3 times the legal limit. Evidence from Gaxiola's previous arrest for driving under the influence of alcohol showed his blood alcohol at the time of the sample was 0.202 and then 0.200. For his part in these arrests and incidents, Gaxiola put numerous lives in jeopardy on at least 2 occasions.
Yes.
Once in a city vehicle filled with his SWAT gear and weapons,
Yeah.
and once in his personal vehicle while armed off duty. The latter of the 2 resulted in a vehicle accident which caused damage to Gaxiola's vehicle and 2 additional vehicles. For these reasons, the division finds the repeat offenses particularly egregious. With that, I'm happy to try and answer any questions that you as the board may have.
Was the first.
Their questions are stupid. Let me skip some of them.
And any discipline history. Sometimes these things are pretty old and they may not have those. In this
Right.
case, I don't.
Between the time that he was driving and the time that he got a blood test, but we don't know how much time.
Yeah, and I don't know that it's necessarily remarkable out. I don't know.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't know whether it was
She's
blood,
asking a stupid question.
excuse me, breath, blood, or
From the highway, and he collided with the rear of the vehicle in the back of that 2 vehicle.
which then collided with the one in the
Yes,
front.
ma'am. And then that moved
Okay.
it forward and
Okay.
collided with the rear of the vehicle in front.
Thank you.
They're about to ask
that
about
help,
his
Captain?
discipline.
Very much so. Thank
you.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Glazer.
Hi, thank you. A couple of questions. One is on his record of disciplinary action within the department, there are 3 cases of discourtesy, and there's an indication on all of them that they were not resolved. And I'm wondering if we can get some clarification on what that means.
We may be able to, but not from me, and that wasn't included in the record specifically. So those cases were.
So it wasn't included in the record, but I know where to find them at. They are. If you do a little bit of digging, you can find them. So here is his background as far as discipline. It says respondent's LAPD disciplinary record shows the following previous discipline at the LAPD. So it looks like in 2001, he got admonished for unbecoming conduct right here. The reason why I say I know it's 2001 because right here it starts with 01, so it represents the year 2001. 2003, he failed to show up to court. So he got subpoenaed to court for a trial, and he just didn't even show up, which is a really dirtbag thing to do. Then he got an official reprimand in 2004 for unbecoming conduct. I'd like to know what divisions he was in. My guess, I just have a feeling this guy is going to be an ex-Rampart cop. Rampart cops have a way of going on to do things like working a SWAT team and working in gang enforcement or narcotics enforcement detail. So I'm going to guess, I have no idea, but I'm going to guess at some point, just guessing. Then he had a couple of discourtesies that were not resolved, and then he had his 2016 suspension. Let's see if there's some more information here about each one of those prior complaints. I think I had seen a document earlier today that had all the information. I'm gonna keep on looking. Let's play this video again. I'm gonna keep on looking. Hold on. Let's see what this guy's talking about.
When we ask for previous work history and any discipline history, sometimes these things are pretty old and they may not have those. In this case, I don't remember specifically, but I didn't find that it was necessarily probative to the DUI. And so I didn't look into it anymore. So yeah, the discourtesy didn't.
Hold on a second here.
I don't want to speak for.
All right, so now they're going to have the union lawyer. She's about to speak, and she's going to tell her bunch of bullshit about this guy. Let's see what he has to say, what she has to say.
Welcome and please go on.
Do you need me to repeat any of that?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. I'm a union attorney for the Los Angeles Police Protective League, and I represent Sergeant Gaxiola for this particular post-hearing. He was planning on being here today remotely, but he's been assigned to the Palisade fires for the next few days, which is, as I'm sure you all know, something that's happening regularly
Oh man.
with LAPD.
So let me stop there, right? So he couldn't even make it. This guy couldn't even make it to his own proceedings because you know what? He's busting his ass sitting over there at the Palisades fire doing his duty, whatever it is. I know what it includes. He's probably sitting there on PCH drinking a bunch of coffee about 100 other cops doing absolutely nothing. And that's why he couldn't make it to this meeting. But of course, she had to add that because she wants to make it look like this guy is a hero. He's doing his hero duty right now, so he couldn't make it to these proceedings. It's a bunch of shit. Right. But it also shows you that as of a week or two ago, this guy was still on the force working as a cop. And that's bullshit.
He is back at work as a sergeant in relation to the rehab agreement that Mr. Greenloff mentioned. That is separate from a settlement agreement. So if anyone has questions about that, let me know. I just wanted to clarify that he was not promoted to sergeant until 2019. So the 2016 DUI did not occur while he was a supervisor.
So
and I wanted
somehow that makes it better. His first arrest when he was on a SWAT team, it didn't happen while he was a supervisor. So she had to clarify. No, he became a supervisor afterwards. I think that's just an indictment on LAPD for giving him that sort of making him a supervisor, getting that promotion. But on top of it, that doesn't somehow mitigate what the hell he did.
to answer the question about not resolved. Sir, you were correct.
Oh God, are you able to?
LAPD did not have body-worn cameras until 2015 is when they first came. And so a lot of the discourtesy allegations of that type were deemed not resolved because there was no way to show if a person did or did not say what was alleged. Those are adjudicated slightly differently now that we have cameras recording everything. I wanted to point out to you that you do have information in the documents that the division provided to you, specifically in the internal affairs investigation that LAPD provided to Post, showing what Sergeant Gaxiola has done since this incident. That particular investigation indicated that he had completed a 90-day rehabilitation program. It was specifically for first responders and dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder.
Oh,
He did the
he
Alcoholics
got
Anonymous
post-traumatic
meetings
stress.
as a result of not only his criminal case in 2022, but for his own betterment as well. He continues that to this day. He participates in the alcohol abuse unit through the behavioral science services at LAPD, which is meetings with psychologists as often as they deem necessary, as well as a peer support member through that specific unit. So the information that you have in front of you from the division already shows the work that he has done since this incident occurred, which was in 2022, which is almost 3 years now. That has occurred. I believe you also have the information of the rehabilitation agreement. It's not through the department, it's through the Board of Rights, which are 3 civilian members selected by the LA Police Commission to hear his case. And they are the ones that entered into that rehabilitation agreement with him and requires at least 2 times a month that he be tested for alcohol.
Oh wow, 2 times a
use
month
in
to get
addition to
tested.
the rehabilitation programs that he's done separate from the 90-day one. The Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, his maintaining his relationship with his sponsor, meeting with him regularly. As you see in that agreement, he's required to report quarterly back to the Board of Rights with his progress. And the next board date for that is actually next week. And they will be making a determination at that point as to whether or not he has lived up to his end of the bargain. And
So listen, let me show you this. I just want to stop what she's saying because it's really fucking infuriating, right? When this settlement agreement, again, he got arrested in 2022, and somehow he entered into a settlement agreement last year, 2024, which laid out certain criteria he had to meet to essentially keep his job before the Board of Rights gives a final sort of disposition. Where's the settlement agreement at? Is this it right here? 1 second, guys. Oh, I say a settlement agreement. It's really a rehab agreement. This is it right here. Let me pull it up. Let's go through this a little bit. Okay. So it says, I, Gabriel Gaxiola, blah, 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 hereby admit that I engaged in misconduct. I mean, thank you for admitting the obvious. You were fucking shit-faced drunk, got in an accident, and your blood level shows that you were seriously drunk. So thank you for admitting the obvious. And it warrants the imposition of discipline. It's nice of him to recognize that his actions warrant discipline. Thank you for recognizing that, Gabriel. I understand after reviewing my personal complaint, the Board of Rights is willing to hold my penalty in abeyance while I participate in a rehabilitation program. So in other words, we're going to delay holding you accountable for your shit for a year, year and a half or whatever, but you have to go ahead and follow this agreement. And as long as you follow this agreement, then we'll take that into account when we make our decision, right? Put him right back on the street as a cop, give him his guns, let him do whatever the fuck he wants to do. Well, here's what his agreement says, that he will involve himself in an alcoholic rehab program advised by the Alcohol Substance Prevention Unit. He will enroll in Alcoholics Anonymous 12-step program. Upon completion of the program, he will attend for the duration of 1 year of the agreement, AA meetings 3 times a week for 6 months and at least 2 times a week for the next 6 months after that. Involve himself in post-traumatic stress rehab program as directed. Because again, this guy is like, he's got stress. He's a victim. This guy is he's not just a perp, he's a victim. And he's got PTSD from his shit. So he's got to get some treatment for that. Maintain records of attendance and provide proof of attendance to such programs, blah, blah, blah. Identify and maintain regular contact with Alcoholics Anonymous sponsor for 1 year. I wish I was a sponsor. They should make me his sponsor. I'll just be over. I'll make me his probation officer. I'll come over there. I'll be all over his shit. I'll be following him around on my scooter. Provide proof of contact with Alcoholics Anonymous. Abstain from any alcoholic beverages for 1 year. Stay away from establishments whose primary business is selling alcohol, which means bars. Submit to a breath substance test a minimum of twice a month. So twice a month he gets a breathalyzer. Like that's not, they probably tell him in advance, hey, next Monday, 9 a.m., you're getting a breathalyzer. Okay. Submit to special rating report on his duty performance, blah, blah, blah. And then he had to meet January 24th, 2025. And again, guys, that was a week ago. He had to meet at 9 a.m. where they would look at all this information and make a decision. Anything else worth looking at? So yeah, that was signed on 1/26/2004. So he had a full year just to get his shit together. Again, this guy, after all he did, why the fuck is he on the force? And they're cutting him all types of break. Hey, come back a year from now and we'll think about what we're going to do then. Thank God for for this board right here, having the ability to decertify him. And they recommended decertifying him. Because without that, this guy could just go ahead and be a cop. Even if he could just continue being a cop. I think this guy has lost the right to work as a cop. I do. I think this guy, after everything that has happened, I think that he should be removed from policing altogether. But, that's what I think. Let me pull this video back up again. See what else she's talking.
They will make a decision about discipline for this 2022 DUI, just so you're aware of that. So I wanted to bring that to the board's attention. I know you have those documents, but I wanted to bring those to your attention and see if there was any other questions that I could answer for you.
Thank you, counsel. Also, please thank him for the service he's providing now for the fire victims.
I will do that.
Thank
Hear
you.
that, guys?
Questions? Questions for
So this in there, there's like, thank you for your service for everything you're doing with the fire victims. Actually, he should be thanking everybody else. Nobody should be thanking this guy. You know, we still end up with that bootlicker mentality that this guy is just fucking running around doing his Grand Theft Auto routine, and we should thank him for his service. Fuck you. Here. Talker says, how can we find out what happened to the officer or something he did before all this bad behavior sparked off? I'm going to tell you, there's nothing you can do to get that information. Nothing. Because under California Penal Code 832.5 or 832.7, police officer personnel reports are off limits to the public unless it's related to lying, dishonesty, deadly use of force, illegal search, sexual misconduct, or discrimination. So his DUI stuff doesn't meet any of that criteria. So therefore, this was all off limits. I was able to find out about some of his statements that he's done in the past, that he's made in the past, by doing some other investigative sort of work that they released sort of only because he's facing termination, where he purposely took somebody's phone and broke it and told him, I don't give a fuck, after he broke the phone. I guess he kicked in somebody's door, wrongly kicked in somebody's door. He transported somebody back to the station illegally. So put them in handcuffs and transported them and then let them go there illegally without cause. And then wrote a report about, or no, didn't even write it in the incident. Come on, man. This is dirty shit. This is a dirty ass motherfucker right here. And again, I don't think this guy has any business being on the damn police force. All right, let me go back to see what she's talking about here.
Counsel, yes, please. Ms. Pena.
How long is this agreement in effect?
So this agreement is in effect for 1 year typically. However, there's a caveat in the agreement that if the board, sorry, not the board, on January 24th, when they have their meeting, they'll make a determination about discipline. They can either choose to terminate him or they can give him a number of suspension days up to 65 days. Whatever they decide, if they don't terminate him, if they give him some amount of suspension days, then LAPD itself has the option to extend that same rehabilitation agreement for another 2 years. So with the Board of Rights, it's a 1 year agreement and they've held that penalty in abeyance. They'll make the penalty decision and then the department can determine if they want to keep him on that same agreement for another 2 years. And he is required to agree to that if they choose it.
If that, you may not be able to answer this, but if that agreement goes away, if he serves his 1 year under that agreement, does he continue going to AA and have a sponsor and participate in the programs at work?
He will, because it has proved to be very beneficial to him
Oh,
in this time period. He is
Shut the fuck up. Oh, even though he won't be required to continue going, he's going to keep on going because it's very beneficial to him. She's just saying the shit that lawyers are supposed to say.
learned a lot since 2022.
Sure, yeah.
So he will continue going because he now understands that he is an alcoholic and will need to maintain that level of sobriety for the rest of his life.
After all these years, he now recognizes that he's an alcoholic. He didn't recognize it when he was blowing a .23 or whatever the fuck it was, 2.20 in Laguna Beach while he was on duty in his SWAT car with all his SWAT stuff. He did not realize he was an alcoholic then, but now after all these years, now when he's facing termination, now is the time when he realizes that, yes, I am an alcoholic. Sure, okay.
And the department has provided him a lot of support. In reality, they have done a very good job of supporting him through this. And
they shouldn't have supported him with this. They should have fucking fired him. Why the fuck are they supporting him? Oh, we got to give you some more support. We know how hard you have it. Fuck out of here.
Providing a lot of resources, both at the police
Our
station where he
resource.
works in Newton Division, as well as just department-wide with their behavioral science services, which provides a lot of supports to officers with addiction.
And he's held accountable. I mean, people are making sure that he's attending 2 AA meetings a week.
Yes, for the Board of Rights, he has to provide proof of that, and they do a quarterly report. I made some notes about it. I know you don't have that yet, but in the
Fuck
first
your
quarter,
notes.
he attended 98 Alcohol Anonymous meetings. The second quarter, he attended 39. The third quarter, he attended 42. The next report will be given to the board next week, and I assume it will be similar numbers to that. I believe he goes at least 2 times a week. And he is tested twice a month for alcohol. It is twice a month, but it's randomly. Sometimes it's
Oh, it is
6
random.
days apart. Sometimes it's 4 weeks apart, but it's a random test where he's tested, and those have all, he's passed all of those.
Have they all been negative
Yes,
for alcohol?
yes,
Okay.
everyone.
Yeah, when his own guys are
And
testing
he
him.
gave me a list of things that he's doing in relation to your question. He meets and speaks with one of the peer support members from the alcohol abuse unit on a
I
regular.
don't care. I don't care what she has to say at this point. Fuck her. Fuck him. You know, I don't care if he's meeting, who he's meeting with, and what he's meeting about. You know, you want to know what somebody is really about, know about their character. You got to look at what they're doing when no one's looking. And so let's look at what he's doing when no one's looking. Let's look at his work history analysis. So it says here, Sergeant Sergeant 1 Joseph Skyda, Newton Complaint Unit, reviewed Gaxiola's Teams 2 report. Teams 2 report is basically report put together to look at cops' history and how to intervene when you see a pattern of behavior that's troubling, right? And it shows that he got a 22-day suspension for that first drunk driving arrest, right? Then he also has here in 2004, Gaxiola inappropriately transported a citizen and submitted an inaccurate, I love how they spelled inaccurate, an inaccurate daily field activity report. And that was sustained, and he got an official reprimand for that because, again, he inappropriately transported a citizen. Then he has here failure to appear because he was subpoenaed to testify. He failed to appear, is sustained for that. Another sustained complaint said the complaining party alleged that Gaxiola damaged their door when he knocked on it. He damaged their door. And that was sustained. He failed to provide a business card upon request. That was not resolved for whatever reason. Then here's another one not resolved. Unbecoming conduct and discourtesy, alleged that Gaxiola stated, like I give a shit, and dropped the person's phone, causing it to be damaged. I love how they say dropped. You know damn well he threw it. And then Gaxiola stated, turn the fucking music down and step out of the fucking car. You're an asshole foreman. And that was not resolved. So this guy is just he's a jerk on top of it. So yeah, there are more documents here I have to go through. We've been on for an hour and I got some shit I want to take care of. So that'll be it for now. Once again, you see how fucked up the process is when it comes to the LAPD, how they take care of their own, how they don't hold them accountable, how the whole entire complaint process is a joke. And thank God for post-certification boards who are able to pull their certification, because otherwise this guy would stay being a cop. And I think that they've recommended that he be decertified. We'll see what happens. We'll see. It might just take a couple of weeks and maybe they'll make a decision. Hopefully they'll say, you know what, this guy is no good as a cop. Maybe later on I will look for a way to for people to contact the board to get their point across and share their voice on whether this guy should remain a cop or not. But yeah, that's enough for now. I am going to head over to these protests downtown because I have a feeling they're going to jump off. If they all do jump off, I will be live streaming there. If nothing really jumps off, I will be back and doing a full podcast later on tonight. Like I said, I was just going through this guy's stuff and I'm like, there's too much here. And I've only shown you a small portion of his shit. But I was like, man, I just got to do a quick little video and show you what we're dealing with. So yeah, I'll be back later on, guys, one way or another. Shout out to the mods, and you guys take care and enjoy your day.